Hearers connected with us today. This is your host, Henry Duodu, Appiahkorang, on my podcast, Isaiah Discussions. And today I have a special guest with me, and we are going to have a discussion about leadership, about life, and several important topics. And I believe that it is going to bless and transform your life this time. But before we dive deeper into our discussion, we would like to know who our guest is today. Can we know who you are?
Sure thing, Henry. Thanks a bunch for having me on your show. My man name's Dominique Dom Brightmon, and I hail from the great city of Baltimore, Maryland, US of A on the East Coast. And I'm all about helping folks advance to their next level in life, especially through the power of content creation, whether they're looking to write and publish their book or start a successful podcast of their own to help them to really get to their next level in life. And when it comes to content creation, self leadership is a major key of that because from the cradle to the grave, we lead ourselves the longest. And in between, that dash in the middle is what really matters. The actions that we take, the people that we inspire, and what we do with what the time that God has given us.
Well, that's great, Dom. Um, so before we dive into maybe your book, I check your website. I could see written some books out there, and I really saw. I think I saw you with this man, John Maxwell. I think on your Facebook page. Have you encountered John Maxwell in your business, in your leadership, in your conferences, or in some of your journeys, Dom?
John Maxwell, he's my favorite author of all time. His work is so inspirational. He himself was a pastor for years on end. He actually was pastor of one of the top 10 fastest growing churches back in US of A in the late 90s. And when he found out that so many
Oh,
folks
that's
in the
great.
business world were reading his books, he decided to expand his influence, and hence me finding his work and transforming my life for the better. So just seeing him in action, being honored to hear him speak and to be able to be certified under him and being one of his legacy legs, as he calls us, is definitely a huge honor. So yeah, John Maxwell, great guy, love him, and he's a big inspiration. He's a big role model to me.
We want to focus about your book, Adam. So, book. Can we know the topic of your book and what actually inspired you to write your book, Dom?
Sure thing. I have a few books under my belt, got about four, and the most recent one's actually an interactive journal that's kind of part two to the first one, Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself. And that first book, what inspired me to write it was actually a dare from a person at a networking event where I was handing out these reading lists to people, and the book list was called The 100 Books for Dynamic Living. And when one lady saw the list of books, she looked at the list and looked right back at me and was like, "Hey, so where's your name on this list, buddy?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it's at the bottom. I got my contact info right there." And she's like, "Nope." Nope. Talk about you as an author. And I was 22 at the time. I'm like, what the heck I got to write about? And she dared me within the next 12 months to have a book accomplished for the next round of events that's probably going to see each other again. And at first, I was like, nope, I don't think I'll do it. But after some deep thought and some soul searching, I realized, you know what? Why not take this opportunity to actually go in and test myself and put myself on the line and join the business of immortality by publishing my first book? And I ended up doing it. Got it done in about 10 months, so was able to meet my deadline. And it was one heck of a launch pad for more success. And who knows, we probably wouldn't even have this conversation today if I didn't have that person challenging me to step up and to really live at a higher level. Because the thing is, when it comes to being inspired and motivating other people, like the messenger, even though they say don't shoot the messenger, they're still going to look at the messenger and be like, all right, so who is this person? What are they doing? Like, they're inspiring me to do more, but what are they doing with their lives? So that is one of the most major things that we all have to really do, is that you have to live your message out, especially if you're a believer, is the fact that your life that you live, the actions you take, the words you speak to and over others, like folks are going to be hearing and watching that, and you may be the only testimony that folks will see of the good Lord out there. So making sure that your life and your beliefs match up so that way your actions and values can match up too.
Well, that's great. Them out there. So if I could get you, well, I saw a book on your webpage. I think something to the note, writing to the note. If I'm sounding correct, like to the northwards key. I saw it out there. Is it about leadership? Is it about what actually is the main theme of the book, and what can we pick? What are the lessons that we can pick from your book as Christian leaders, as Christians, as normal vessels? What are the key points that you believe or you realize in your life that you believe that when we pick these lessons, it's going to help us practically in our life, Dom?
Sure thing. Since my topic of expertise is self leadership, and having a positive mental attitude is a part of it, and serving others is another part of it, I have to say, Stay the Course, the second book, is probably the best one when it comes to the topic of leadership, because one of the major keys from that book is consistency and commitment. And that one key is really about taking consistent action, because comfort will poison your progress if you stay stagnant. Heck, even there's a quote by Napoleon Bonaparte where he mentions that the most dangerous time in a person's life is right after victory. Heck, even Christ himself, right after John the Baptist baptized him and the world saw that display, he went right into the wilderness for those 30 days of fasting where he had no food or water. So it's like those moments where you have those high highs, there's going to be low lows waiting for you afterwards. And one of the major things is to focus on always getting better than the day before, always getting better than what you were a year before, 5 years before, 10 years ago, and always getting better than what you were before. So leaders are those who are pace setters. And if you're going to be a pace setter, you have to realize that you can't stay comfortable for too long, because in a way, when you stay comfortable for too long, you're creating your own quicksand, because you'll become so stagnant in your ways. And the thing is, with all the wonderful tools out there, like AI being one of the hot topics still to this day, and how there are so many other options outside of ChatGPT when it comes to using AI as an assistant, like the possibilities are even more endless than before, and just upping your game on knowing how to use AI as an assistant, depending on what you do with your work, when it comes to researching, when it comes to planning things, when it comes to editing your work, maybe even shooting you some ideas of how to create things and making them even more polished, like just learning about what's going on around you, what's going out in the world, and see how you can best combat the negativity that's out there while using your abilities, your God given abilities, your beautiful mind, the original computer, the brain that we all have, to really advance to our next level. So it's really about making sure that you don't let your place of comfort become your place of quicksand where you sink into mediocrity and be like, oh man, this thing worked well for like years. Like I'm falling behind here. Like what's going on here? So that's one of the major things about leadership. If you're gonna be a pace setter, you gotta avoid being comfortable for too long.
Well, that's great. Um, Dom out there. So, Dom, practically, have you been in a leadership section? Like, have you ever led or lead a group of people? Are you into a practical leadership section or like a business or organization? Maybe a small church, maybe a small business. Are you into something that talks about practical, that deals with practical leadership, or maybe you deal with human beings, you deal with people? Are you into such um connections out there, Dom?
Yes, indeed. Had a day job at a local library where I was basically responsible for helping to train newer staff and being an example for other new staff who were coming in and showing them the basics of how to really show the material and be a good example when it comes to giving good customer service. I was also part of Toastmasters International in multiple leadership roles, one of them being area director, where I was overseeing 5 clubs in an area in a part of Maryland, and advancing even higher to division director, where I had to oversee 17 clubs in the northern Maryland area. And that time doing those things, it helped me to learn about the one leadership tip I shared earlier about being a pace setter and not letting yourself being too comfortable. But another thing of really just leading by example, because the thing is, the easiest yet sometimes not so easy part about leadership to do is to be a leader by example. Is that if you're going to be the one giving the presentations, leading the meetings, training folks in the way they need to go, then you have to do that yourself. You have to set that example. And there's going to be some days where you may have things going on in your personal life where it may be affecting your professional life. And at the time in Toastmasters, I was taking care of my dying father who was going through Alzheimer's and having to take care of him while maintaining a leading role as a part of a group and being responsible for certain benchmarks twice a year, especially. Like that was a tall order to take, because it's like going home and seeing the one that you call your hero decay and degrade, and then having to put on a face of like, hey, it's let's go get this, it's go time, let's go get it. Like, even though things are going on, it's like, hey, they don't need to see that, because leaders aren't allowed to have bad days in terms of making sure that everything is really peachy key and everything's rosy. But the thing is, like, being able to have that emotional intelligence to realize, hey, there are some folks in the world who will be able to empathize with you and some who may not, and that there are different personalities in the different rooms that you'll be in. And with me in particular at the time, I was probably on average the youngest guy in the room in my 20s, when the average Toastmaster is in their middle 30s, like 35 and above. So it's like, hey, this guy is coming in. It's like, all right, he's got the look, he says the right things, but is he actually competent? It's like, okay, all right, I kind of like this guy. He's actually competent. He's helping us out with these meetings and things like that. So it's really just not only making sure that you're being a pace setter, being the person who's leading by example, but also having that emotional intelligence to realize, okay, once I'm done here, making sure that I take care of myself in other areas before I take care of another area. Because the thing is, we all have certain metaphorical buckets of energy that we have to really distribute throughout the day. And sometimes one bucket it may be a little emptier than the other one. And some folks may get that one bucket more than some of the other buckets. So it's really about those three things is like, yep, I've done it before, and it can be a tall order. But when you have emotional intelligence, that EQ, and you're being a pace setter in the process, but also making sure you lead by example by making sure that you two do the work and you don't try to be one of those tell tell the leaders who tell folks what to do and try to be a boss but not doing yourself isn't going to work. So just focus on making sure you're being that pace setter, making sure you lead by example, and also that you have that EQ, because that way you'll be able to take care of yourself before you take care of the world.
Well, that's great, Dom. You be a pace setter. You have the emotional intelligence. You lead by example. That's great, Dom, with your practical keys out there. So, you did talk about AI, artificial intelligence, um, connecting that with leadership and connecting that with life. How do you think that this AI can make mistakes since they are robots, they are machines, and we know that some ideas can be very that this AI pick information from the website, or they pick information from online various blogs. Don't you think that this AI, if they pick maybe a bad information and then give to the users out there, is it going to affect us? Because these AIs are just machines, they are just robots, they are just in the clouds. But we need real human beings to give us experiential knowledge, practical knowledge that they've been through, they've tested it. So comparing the AI and then human leadership, how do you match, how do you compare and contrast that in our life, and how it's going to affect us, since these AIs are not real human beings, that they are just robots trying to give us our ideas on the internet.
Good question. Well, the thing about AI is that we're still in the beginning phases of the public version of AI that they allow regular humans to have. I'm pretty sure there's a more advanced version of AI out there that we're probably going to be in trouble about. And you're so right. AI is just basically robots that have basically absorbed a bunch of knowledge from Google and the internet, and as much as the probably even part of the dark web possibly. But the thing about AI is, especially with things like ChatGPT and Google Gemini, is the fact that when it comes to using AI for research purposes, you'll have to ask ChatGPT or whatever AI tool that you're using, if you're using it for like research purposes, to provide a source along with the statement that it gives back to you. Because funny enough, I actually had a guest on my podcast who even talks about using AI, and the fact that there was a court case, I believe, in February of 2023, where one lawyer was citing a bunch of cases that he used AI to reference. But the problem is, AI at the time couldn't find those court cases, so it made it up. The thing about AI right now in its current form is that it will hallucinate sometimes, same way humans do from time to time, and make up stories and fabricate stories and give you fake information. And that's why it's always good to ask for a reference if it's something historical and you're not trying to write like a fiction novel or something like that. Because the thing is, just like humans, like God created us humans and we humans created the robots. So it's like, hey, if we're created in the image of God and we have the sense of humor as one of the traits, I'm sure God has it too. But the thing is, since we humans are fallible, we're not perfect, what we're also going to create isn't going to be perfect either. So that's the other thing with AI, is the fact that it's going to have similar traits to humans, and occasionally fabricating things, which isn't a good idea unless you're in the entertainment industry, can really be a detriment to you. So it's really about using it as a tool to assist in its current form. What it's going to grow into eventually, it may be scary. I know there's been reports out there of some AI with the facial recognition where some folks of color were matched up with certain criminals who did criminal activity. But the problem is, the AI facial recognition didn't really matched up with the correct person, so someone was falsely accused. I can't provide the exact source for that one off the top of my head right now, but there's good and bad with it. So it's really all about using it as a helpful tool, and sometimes using it as taking it with a grain of salt, because you don't want to try to think, oh yeah, AI is like super Google, it'll spit out whatever I ask it to. It's like, yeah, it'll spit it out, all right. It's just it may spit out something you not do not really need, and if you're trying to use it for something really important and you don't proofread it or check the facts behind it, then you're gonna put yourself in a bad spot. And leaders are men and women who want to be accurate. And if you want to be accurate, always check the source. Always check the source.
Always check the source. Always check the source. That's great, Dom. Out here. And I've also made a little research on what you've been doing. From my little research, I learned that you've had discussion with over 500 authors and dignitaries, getting to 800, if I'm right. So with all the discussion you had with these personalities, with these leaders, with authors, if you compare or if you contrast and then combine, what are some of the similarities? What are some of the important wisdom keys that they gave that if you try to summarize all of them, can you share them with us on our platform on what we can pick from what you really had with them in a very short form, Dom?
Sure thing. One major thing that sticks out with the commonalities with the authors I've interviewed is one thing is that they all have a sense of reinvention. And the thing is, if for those who want to get to new heights in life, those who want to really get to a new level, you're going to have to become a new version of yourself. And reinvention is the way to go. And one guest I had in particular, Karen Freeland, she's a reinvention expert herself, where she actually was in corporate for a long time. And on paper, she looked like she had it all together. She was a mom, she was a wife, making six figures, but internally, she wasn't fulfilled. And the thing was is that she really had to do something bigger. She always wanted to be a coach. So one of the major things she did, she ended up taking a pay cut and eventually decided to start coaching others. And she eventually wrote and published books, and one of them is about women's health in particular, and her story of dealing with a certain body part out there. I won't say what it is for the soft ears out there, but look up her name if you're interested. And really just using that as a way to propel herself into new growth, more client and coaching opportunities, more opportunities to speak and deliver workshops, and really live the life that she truly desires. Heck, even having a deeper spiritual connection to really grab her life by the dreams and really making them happen in real life. So, reinvention is the major thing that sticks out, especially for some folks who aspire to become authors, because we have a lot of folks who are writing books at young ages today, even younger than 23, heck, even some at 14. And then there's some folks who are in their 50s plus who are in their second wind, and they're like, all right, let's do this thing that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And to reach that prime time and to really be inspired to create and write that book. So reinvention is probably the major thing that sticks out with the hundreds of authors that I've been able to interview and connect with. And if you want to reinvent yourself, it's going to involve some creativity, it's going to involve some consistency, and you're going to have to avoid complacency. So, yep, that's what sticks out between a
All
lot
right.
of the folks I've.
All right. So Dom, if I get an accurate number, how many personalities or authors or things have you been able to interview or have discussion with?
Last I checked, I've interviewed about 970 different authors.
Whoa, 900, over 900 authors. Wow, that's great, Dom. The minute that you had uh, with people that they really shared practical knowledge to it. But I think today I'll talk about the AI, the artificial intelligence. There's something I myself recently I just came across them. Although I'm also an author, I'm also a writer as well. I do write books, and I write as I'm inspired by the Holy Spirit. But when I try to compare these AI machines, these AI robots, they give ideas which are somehow very, let's say, they are somehow trustworthy. But if you try to compare their writing to we, let's say, the writers, you can see there's a little difference between them and then our writers. So how do we know that this book is coming from an AI? How do we know this book is coming from a real person? Because it looks like they are almost the same. It looks like what the AI can produce, an author can also produce. So isn't that we the authors, our let's say our platform or maybe our gift is being abused by this AI something. So my question is, how do we differentiate between AI books and then real human beings books, and how can authors maybe use, as you said, authors can use this for. So how do we know the difference, Dom, and how can we work on that, Dom?
Interesting question. Well, one easy answer is that if the book is published in 2022 and before, there's a good chance there was no AI involved unless it was maybe Grammarly. That's probably about it. We didn't have GPT to the public until I believe, I think it was like November 2022. So any book pre 2022, there was no Chat GPT involved to my knowledge. And two, you're so right. There was actually an article out, I believe in 2023, that came out where it listed the authors and the books that were used to train ChatGPT on how to write. John Maxwell, who I'm certified under, and Tosca Lee, who was a wonderful author that had the honor to interview. Those are just two of some of the, I believe, 1 to 200 authors that were used in some of their writings to train ChatGPT on. One major thing that you can discern on whether someone has used AI to write a book, if they've, let's say if you read, I guess a John Maxwell book from 2005, let's say the 15 Laws of Growth. If you read that book, and let's say he came out with a new book, let's say, shoot, Leadership 7.0. I don't know if that's what it'll actually do in the future, but hey. But if you read that and compared it to this fake book, and the writing style is totally different, and there's no stories used whatsoever at all, then you can say in a way that this may be AI and this may have been something that's not his writing, because a lot of writers, they have a certain way that they write. They'll improve over time. Their writing will become smoother over time, but it won't be a complete radical difference. Also, in inspirational work, the word transformative has been used a lot of times. Funny enough, I actually use AI as a helpful tool in my post production for my show, The Going North podcast, to help create show notes. And I noticed that a lot of times it'll use the word transformative for some strange reason. And I'm not always focusing on transforming others. Sometimes folks don't need transformation, they just need action steps to move forward. So there may be certain words that may come out after a while, and also sometimes things may be a little wordy too. And if it's someone that you've already read from before, and you read a book and it's totally different, it's like, wait, this doesn't feel the same. That's probably a good way to tell if it's AI or not. So if it's something that's pre 2022, November 2022, there's probably no AI involved. But if it's like post 2023 and their writing style is completely different, and it's someone who is already known as a well known author and their writing style completely changed to where it's almost like this ain't the real person, then there's a good chance it might be GPT involved.
So if I'm getting you right, any book that began from, let's say, 2023 it's possible that there's an AI involved, but any book maybe beyond from 2022 back downwards is a real author, right?
Right.
Okay, that's great out there. Because I asked this question because today it seems that people are writing many books, and you check, you see the books coming out every day. People are writing, publishing books. So I was even somehow surprised. Although I myself, I've written several books. I think I started writing in 2017. No, I think back in senior high school in 2000 and I think 2008, 2009, I started writing, but I was not publishing them. I just began publishing my books around 2017 or so. Back 2017 to 2021, I've written about over 70 books in my records. But when I compare in these days, you see that there are many books that have PR, like I think public right or something like that. There are many books. You go to some website, they label it PR. You can just take the book as your own. You put your name on the book and you sell the book. And I'm surprised, hey, how can somebody write a book, paste it on a website, and allow somebody to just use his name on the book and sell the book for free? So I was thinking that maybe it's about the AI. They use AI to write the books and they publish it on the website. People can use their names and then sell the books for free. So I believe that, as you said, that to know the difference between AI and then real authors, we have to check from the date possibly 2023 going, and also there is no real stories in the book to connect with the theme of the book. It helps in that way. And diving back to our discussion, Dom, since you are also an author, I'm also an author. At least we've been in this journey. So, in your writing journey, can you share with us with your, maybe there might be some authors hearing us, there might be some writers or maybe an aspiring writers hearing us who wants to write and they are tempted to use the AI to write the books. How will you advise incoming writers, aspiring writers? Should they use the AI to write their books or should they use their own knowledge? How do you advise incoming authors, people who aspire to write books? Dom?
Good question. I'd have to say it really depends on the person because AI, at the end of the day, right now in its current form, AI is just a tool. If you want to use it as an assistant, that's cool. If you don't want to use it at all, that's cool too. There's some writing purists out there who hate AI altogether, and artists, especially in the artist field, they hate AI art as a total whole because they can tell from an emotional, internal, spiritual standpoint, like, hey, this is computer generated. This ain't the real person. This isn't the real deal right here. So I'd have to say, if you want to use AI, just use it as a tool to assist. Don't use it to completely write your entire book, unless you're going to use it for business as a freebie or a giveaway or a lead magnet as one of those things where it's like, all right, hey, here's this free tool here. My ideas with AI assisted word content development to help you get you next level so you can subscribe to an email list. If you're good to do it for that, then sure, have at it. But I'd have to say, use it as an assistant if you plan on using it. Don't use it as your whole entire writing deal because folks are going to be able to tell after all, especially if this isn't like your first ever book you've written, and especially if it's a non-fiction book where you actually plan to write the book how you speak, because that's where my books came from. They're from past talks that I've given, and folks can tell that, hey, this is actually me speaking. Also, another thing too, if someone aims to write, let's say, 30 books all at once with AI, that's another thing too. I'm not sure if folks will pay attention to that part of it, but Amazon only lets you upload up to 6 books at a time in a 24-hour period. So that's another thing too. So if you try to upload like 30 random books at the same time on the same day, Amazon isn't going to let you do it if you go that route. But At the end of the day, do what you decide to do what you want. I got no dog in the fight as long as it's something that benefits you and the folks around you and it doesn't involve taking someone else's work and posing it as your own. Just focus on getting your stuff done, making sure it's about helping other people, whether that's through inspiring them or entertaining them.
All right. So in summary, our time is almost spent. In summary, Dom, how will you? What are your last words for our hearers today? What advice do you have for them? The short discussion today, Dom.
Sure thing, Henry. My parting words would be advance others to advance yourself. Because if you help other people, enough other people, get what they want out of life, you'll eventually get what you want. And it doesn't even have to be from the folks you helped, because the thing is, when we plant seeds and God does the watering, we'll get a crop later, and that crop may crop up later in a way we'll never expect. So advance others to advance yourself.
That's great, Dom. So, Dom, where can we find you? Do you have a website? Where can we find you on social media? Do you have a blog, a website? People can get your books to read, to buy your books. Is there a link to your site or website or social media site, Dom?
Yes, sir. Head over to dombrightmon.com. That's DOMBRIGHTMON.com. All things Dom is there, especially on my social medias too. Everything is at Dom Brightmon to keep it easy for everybody. So just head over there and see what you find and see what you like.
Well, that's great having you, Dom. So this is how we end our discussion today. This is your host, Henry Duodu, Appiahkorang on Isaiah Discussions. And I encourage you to share this podcast with your friends, with your authors, aspiring authors, Christians out there. I believe that if you share with others, it's going to bless their life. And so once again, this is your host, Henry Duodu, Appiahkorang. We end our discussion today